Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. So in this video we will see how to create a pod in Kubernetes. So let's get started with the introduction. So what is pod? So basically a pod in Kubernetes is the smallest and simplest unit in the Kubernetes object model. So it represents a single instance of running process in your cluster, and a pod contain one or more container, and it is used to host the container that make up your application. Pod provide a shared network and storage resources for the containers they host and ensure that they co-located on the same node in the cluster for efficient communication. This makes it easy to manage and scale your application by using pod and building as building blocks. So basically, pods in Kubernetes serve several important purposes like isolation, co-location, um, resource management, networking, scalability. So pods provide a way to isolate your application container from one and another, which is important for security and source management. Co-location, which ports allow you to correlate locate related container on the same node in the cluster, making it easier to manage and scale your application. Also, port provide a convenient way to manage the resource such as CPU and memory used by the container, which helps ensure that your applications run efficiently. So ports provide a shared network namespace which allows container within a port communicate with each other using localhost. Also, port can be replicated easily to scale your application either horizontally by increasing the number of ports or vertically by increasing the resource allocated to each port. So, the port is represented as a box that contain one or more container. The container are represented as box that contain can application code. A port provides a shared network namespace for the container it host, allowing them to communicate with each other local host. So an IP volume is a type of volume in Kubernetes that provide a way to persist data in a pod. It works by using the host network file system to mount a directory in a pod container, allowing data to persist even if the pod is deleted or recreated. In a pod with an IP volume, a container uses the host file system to store data in a designated directory. This data is then available to other containers in the same pod or to other pod running on the same node. The IP volume is mounted on the container file system at a specified mount point, allowing the container to access the data as if were stored locally. The IP volume is represented as a box that contains the host file system. The container is represented as box that contain the application code. The data is being persisted using the IP volume. The data is stored in the IP volume and is available to both container in the pod, allowing them to share data easily. Yeah, so ports basically is atomic unit, you can say that, on the Kubernetes platform. We can deployment Kubernetes. That deployment creates pod with the container them inside, as opposed to create the containers directly. So each pod is tied to the node where it is scheduled and remain there until termination according to restart policy or deletion. In case of node failure, pods are scheduled on available nodes in the cluster. So let's get started with the demonstration part, how to create a pod. So one we have to learn what are the syntax, what are using in the YML file. Okay, so for that one we have the command to check what are the syntax we have required in the YAML file. So kubectl explain this is the command and parts. Okay, so So here we can get the description like kind is a pod object. Version 1 we have to use, and pod is a collection of containers that can run on a host. So we can create a multiple containers on the single pod of we can use a single container. Then we have to define the API version, kind is object. So okay, metadata means you have to provide the details of the pod like is metadata, and specification specs means we have to define the containers here. Okay, so let's clear this and create one by one YML file. So vi we can you name of the file is test.by yml. Okay, we have already checked. First we have to provide the API version here. V is capital. Okay, API version is v1. And next we have to provide the kind, uh, then we have to provide the metadata. We have to provide the specs. So this is the fourth thing we have to define in our YML file. So kind is like what kind of object is pod. So in the metadata we have to define the name and label of the pod. So here we can provide the name. So name of pod is we can say this test engine X. Okay, we have to provide the label. Okay, so we have to provide the name, and this is uh, Nginx demo. And now in the spec section we have to provide the containers. So we have to provide the container here, and container is required object. So we can provide the object. This is one image, the name of the container. So we are using the Nginx image here, and name we can provide here, which is also Nginx. This is our simple YML file that we are using to create the simple pod. So we have defined the API version v1, kind is pod, metadata content name and label. Okay, so this is the level is type of array, so we are defining in the in this kind. And in the specification we have required to provide a container information, so we have defined these things here. So continuously record the object, so we can define the object like this. So if you let's save these things. Now I want to check this my test.yml file, this is correct or not. So for that we have to command is kubectl mine hyphen if then test.yml file dry run. We execute this command, it will check the yml file is correct or not, and it will run on the client machine. Okay, so this is outdated. We have to execute this command. So try ironing is execute perfectly, there is no mistake in our yml file, but there is no part is created, it's just checking that one the syntax everything is correct or not in our yml file. So once we remove these things, so let's check it. We can say here there is no resource found. Now create the pod using yml file. Okay, kubectl get sorry ctl create hyphen f test yml file. So we can see here the pod testing is created. Okay, using our yml file, so let's check get pod. We can see here the testing pod is up and running. The edge is 11 second. Now if you want to see the detail of the part, so we can see here kubectl describe what and name of the pods. Okay, so whatever the things that we written inside the YML file, all the things will become here. So the name we are providing the testing nginx, then namespace we have not defined here, then container engine x image that we are using. So all this information that we have written in our nginx file will be present is here. Okay, so node and start time which ipad is using. Okay, so all this information we get it with the help of using describe command. Okay, now if you want to like delete the pod, okay, we have to using the command which is ctl delete and the name of the part kubectl get pod and testing nginx copy this and kubectl delete and the name of the pod. Okay, so once we execute this thing it will delete the pod. Okay, so pod is deleted, ctl and get pod, so there is no pod in there. Now if you want to learn more about like small syntax that we have to use in our yml file, so that we have to command is kubectl explain pods hyphen hyphen recursive. So once we execute these things, we will know the details of the part, like what syntax we are using and what type of this syntax. Okay, so let's check it here. API version is a string type. Kind string type metadata is object that require multiple parameters, and here we are using the labels. So labels are also string type object that require multiple labels. Okay, then specification is object, so in that one we have to define the containers. So yeah, here is a container, the array of object, so we have to define the object like this one by one. Okay, that we are using the image sentence that is a string type if you want to open the port. So this is the port is also type of object. So we can check all this field by using kubectl explain ports hyphen recursive. So yeah, that's all for this video. Hope you like it, and this is also to how to create and delete a pod. So okay, bye, thank you.